Hello out there, everybody. What's going on? We are live again, talking about some of the best old CrossFit media. I've been pretty much, my attention lately has been just so wrapped into this quarterfinals and the competition season. Frankly, I've been slacking a little bit on getting guests, but that doesn't matter because I like practicing these live shows by myself anyway, and going through some old stuff. One of the things that kind of jumped out at me just talking about some of the best old CrossFit Games events as we're gearing up into this game season, as I started thinking back to like what I thought the most brutal CrossFit Games test has been yet. And there's a bunch, and you could debate this to the end of time. Just a couple things stand out at me about the workout we're going to look at today, the Burden Run from 2013. What's up, guys? Thanks for coming. Augustus, yeah. Seth jump ship doesn't skip training. Well, I try not to, but sometimes I do. What's up, Corey? Yeah, so I agree that's up there, but I'll make my case for why it's not actually the most brutal. It is up there for sure. Augustus, absolutely. If you have stuff you want to watch and come on the show, I'll invite you on anytime. I'm happy to do it. Yeah, the Burden Run. That's what we're going to look at today. What's up, Kenneth? Yep, we'll talk about that a little bit too. Love that one. I actually sat in that little stadium at StubHub Center or wherever it was off campus, and I watched that entire thing. And I think I was still in awe the entire time. Khalipa just put on a show. All right, so before we get into the Burden Run, though, before we get there, what's up, dude? Before we get there, this is the closest thing we can compare it to. So people who don't remember the Burden Run or don't have any freaking clue what I'm talking about, they tried, in my opinion, they tried to recreate it recently. Anyone want to guess what they tried to recreate the Burden Run with? I'll share here in a second. So they tried to recreate the Burden Run recently. The Capitol. So 2022. Yeah, exactly, James. Yep. So they started with the pig flips. They were slightly heavier than the Burden Run. I think they only had 20 reps they had to do, if I'm not mistaken, which is a lot. Then they went out on like a 3.5 mile run-ish, something like that, through downtown Madison down to the Capitol building, which is a super cool spot. Gonna kind of miss Madison. Texas is gonna be different. And then they had the heavy jerry cans, followed by the strongman carry of that stone replicant there into a sandbag. So I'll make my case as to why the Burden Run's worse than this. This is way cooler of an event in terms of like for the audience, right? People got to go downtown and watch them finish this live. And the hype on this, bringing the bags up the stairs, which the stairs adds this like insane element, because it's one thing to carry the 200-pound bag for the guys, 150 for the ladies, just in that hug position, which is hard enough as it is. But it's a whole other thing to basically do half a lunge step for every single step that you're climbing at the end of a workout, the end of a pretty brutal workout. So I thought this was a really cool event. It's the closest they've ever come, in my opinion, to replicating the Burden Run. And I think the hype behind this was better than the Burden Run, but I still think the Burden Run is all time. Yeah, I can't even say that word, Augustus. Hussafel? Is that right? I don't even know. The fact that the run course was open at it. Yeah, it's true. It did. But yeah, the hype across the Capitol was way more hyped. It was a way better spectacle than the Burden Run. Hussafel, thank you. But let's get to the fun. So not only are we going to talk about what I think was the better event, but we get to do the throwback, look at all my favorite athletes from back in the day. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to watch the men's Burden Run, most of it, and then we'll touch on the women's as well. But I just absolutely freaking love this event. So you might have some long pauses for me talking just because I get kind of into watching this, but we're going to watch it with sound and everything.
It's top of the leaderboard, and that's amazing.
Event 4 awaits these men.
Sean Woodland and Bill Grundler.
Stand by, Cat.
Watch Neil Maddox start this thing. You can see him on the top left. He just tries to sprint. He's in the white shirt, just trying to hammer, and then see how long he stays in the front of the pack. Not long.
Four different things that these athletes need to deal with, and it starts with a 2.1 mile run.
That's right, 2.1 mile run, and look at how fast these guys are coming out of the gate. But you know what? It's not
so 2.1 miles is not a crazy run, but for CrossFitters back then, they still weren't that great at pacing this stuff.
490 pounds, looks like a crazy sort of a tire. They got to carry.
So they have the run, then the pig flip, then the log carry, then the sled in the field at the end, which is carnage and hilarious and awesome.
The athletes starting on
all kinds of big names back then.
Mile run, and Bill running, especially a distance run. And
so the two guys without the shirts on are Josh Bridges and Garrett Fisher. Garrett was basically known back then to be the top runner. He's a big dude, just had a super engine.
And one of the things when we moved to the StubHub Center was that we thought we would lose that aspect of it. But every year they brought it in. 2.1 miles is not too far, but for most CrossFitters,
the thing is, even if you lost on the run by
because they don't want to run, they think they can just
90 seconds. If you gave up 90 seconds in a 2-mile run, which is significant, it really comes down to how you're going to flip the pig after this, because the pig, the rep speed and cycling the pig flips is way more important than how hot you come in from the run, as you'll probably see here momentarily.
100 yards, they then pick up a log.
All right, so Garrett Fisher takes the lead, and Garrett Fisher comes into the stadium first. So let's zip this forward a little bit. Don't need to watch the whole run here. We'll get to Garrett coming in the stadium.
One of the things that has always been an issue for him has been some of this car.
All right, so Garrett's first man in.
So if you're up in the front, you get your choice. You know, whether that ends up being a better lane assignment or whichever, you get to choose
the sled does right. That's the whole show, right? The sled at the end of this is the whole show.
Genius.
So this is the first time this was introduced. Instead of a tire flip, they had the pig flip. This was the first year we saw any sort of implement like this. And if I remember correctly, they did not get an opportunity to play with them. I don't think these were in the warm-up area. I'm trying to remember back. I don't believe they had any chance to play with these ahead of time, which makes this, learning on the fly. As you can see from some of the technique, if they had more of an opportunity to play with it, they would have been way more efficient. But they're literally learning how to flip the 450 whatever it was pound.
Not putting him in a very advantageous position to get this thing up. The best way to lift a tire is to drive at a 45-degree angle into with your arms straight underneath. But he's
so you'll see shortly how the run really plays a small part in this, and how flipping the pig is actually way more valuable than the run.
Fisher's lead has quickly disappeared as Jordan Troyan has now caught him on the pig flip, as has Lacey Kovacs, and now Josh Bridges to work as well. So all the work that Garrett Fisher put in to get that huge lead on that run has disappeared in a matter of seconds, and now it's Lacey Kovacs out of
they'd have chalk in their pants, stuff it down their boxers, for sure. So you can see about 90 seconds after Garrett gets there, we have a bunch of people rolling in still. Not that the people in the back necessarily have good finishes, but Garrett's probably only 3 flips in, working on his 4th right now. But of course, you see the big advantage too, coming in first. You got an earlier lane.
Actually works. They don't want to try to lift it up and have it fail and drop down. They got to get it over. They got to keep it
down. I think that's correct, Corey. I don't believe they got to play with them at all ahead of time, which is cool. I think that's a cool element of the sport. Whenever they do that to people, they just go, oh, here it is. Good luck with it. They've done that dozens of times over the years. Even something as simple as the finish the year that Ben Smith won the games, when they had like the 200-pound kettlebells out there. Like, they didn't get to touch those, and no one had ever seen a 200-pound kettlebell before when they were deadlifting the pair of them. Like, it's just cool to give them that element on the floor and see how they deal with it. I think that's all part of the game.
It's going to be a huge deal. So smart move on his part.
I think that's Lacey Kovacs. Yep, there we go. He was an absolute beast out of Europe.
One of the few men who is towards the front of the pack after Garrett Fisher broke away, and now Kovacs has made up the lead, made up that deficit, and is now in the lead.
The chaos is part of the entertainment though, right, Corey? Like, but there's also a fine line on that chaos. Like I like when it's chaotic, but they solve it and they get through it, and there's like tension to see who's going to finish first. I don't like the chaos when they introduce pegboards to women in the final and no one in the first heat can do any. I don't like that type of chaos. I like chaos that can be overcome.
On the run is actually going to pay off for him here if he can move through this a little quicker, make up some distance. Again, he's a smart athlete. He knows where everybody is all the time.
I saw in the weekend review, James, that Castro said he thinks they'll have the same number of outdoor events in the past in Texas as they did in Madison, California, all that. Well, I guess everything's outdoor in California, but as in Madison, I just assume they're going to have a much earlier time frame on things. All right, so I'll spoil it for you guys a little bit just so we can watch everything today.
Absolutely.
Surprise, surprise, guess who makes a push on the pig and then starts taking over? If you guessed Mr. Jason Khalipa, who just came off winning 2 first places. The event before this, if I'm not mistaken, was the 2K row into the half marathon row. So you had to nearly sprint to 2K because that was 100 points in itself, followed by continuing straight on through a half marathon. And Khalipa absolutely destroyed that. It was one of the craziest things I've ever seen. Just they had the big screen up and they had all the boats so you could watch people racing in the stadium before this event. I think it was the day before this. And then there he is. So here comes Khalipa. Just manhandling that thing. So we're going to fast forward a bit and get Khalipa to the end.
Where the more powerful athletes in the field are going to start to really be able to make up some distance.
Yeah, what Jason has is so much strength. You can see him just pop that up. Be able to handle it fine.
So Khalipa, again, was not even close to the first person in off the run because look how far deep in the field he is. They were basically coming in order. So he's in lane, whatever, 15 or something. That means he was mid-pack coming in off the run and is significally ahead of everybody now after the pig. So it shows you the value of handling the heavy object versus just the run itself. And then look, that log's 100 pounds. I know that's not heavy for those guys, but he picks that up like it's a children's toy. It's just not what it would look like if I touched the 100-pound log, 3 feet long.
Right now that log that they're picking up is 36 inches long.
Yeah, he is the all-time CrossFit animal. I know there's athletes that have done better than him in the sport and been more successful, but no one has demonstrated like sheer will like Jason Khalipa, and no one has necessarily dominated these like brute force type workouts like Khalipa. It's not even that he's just strong; it's that his engine is ridiculous. His ability to keep a high power output again on that row event before this is insane. I don't think it's even been matched. I can't even think of people today that if you paired him up with Khalipa back in his prime, he would still be taking first place in some events, even though the sport has come so far. He just, like someone who you might compare him to today, maybe would be like with the same level of engines, like a Roman Krenikov. But I don't even think Roman has had the same level of like dominance against the field in these kind of brute style events.
Is on his log. Froning is one of the men Jason Khalipa.
I don't recall. I don't recall if they used the same ones.
197 points.
I think the women may have used the same logs. I think they were the same 100-pound logs for the women. We're going to find out here in a minute.
Do not slow down. Do not
yeah, he did. I wish Khalipa definitely left some success on the table, right? He lived and died by the like intensity model, and if he had a coach that could have like harnessed that and helped him pace that and understand how to use that a little better, I think he would have had 2 to 3 CrossFit Games championships. I think this year in particular, I think he could have beat Rich if he didn't have a couple of the blow-ups he had. I think he finished second to Rich in this by a decent margin too. I think he lost to Rich by like 80 or 90 points, but there's a lot of events where he gave away points unnecessarily. Rich still finished well, but he gave away points. Yeah, dude. All-time video.
Those three men trying to chase down the overall.
All right, we're going to move
leader.
forward a little
Rich
bit to
Froning
the so they have this
30th
log carry.
place
And by the way,
finish
so I was
at
saying
fourth.
why I think this event's
For that familiar
way
territory,
harder
right?
than
He
the
finishes
Capital.
second. He finishes sixth.
I think
And
carrying
the
this
guy who's
log,
the most
even though it's
consistent,
half the
most
weight,
talented
this
athletes
odd
that we've
object
seen,
is, and even though you can
longer this
shoulder it, I
competition
think
goes,
is
the better it's
harder
going to be for
because
him,
of the
but he
distance
has
they're
to
carrying
start
it and
finishing
how
ahead
awkward it is
of
to
Jason
hold
Khalipa. Now, Marcus
than
Edwards,
carrying
guy
the
who's spent a ton of
Husafell
time on
bag.
farm,
The
used to do
bag,
grunt
even up
work
the
like
stairs,
this,
was a shorter
keeping up a
distance,
pretty
and
good
it was
pace with
brutal
that
and
log
heavier.
across his
But I think
shoulders.
this
I think of
log
anyone on
is
the field who
not only
probably
like a
has probably
physical toll, but the
the most
mental toll of trying to figure out how to hold on. And
experience with something like
you're
this, getting up
suffering
over
so
10 and
bad at
moving
this
around
point,
like
coming
that.
off
He's
the
the only one
pig.
that
Your
we can
heart
see
rate's
really
never been
running.
higher in your entire
And I
life.
know Marcus
And
really
you have
wants
to
to
hold
put
on to this
you know,
thing.
let's
And
put a
every
stamp
step,
on, hey,
every
you know what?
second,
I didn't
you want to
just
put this
luckily
thing
make
down.
it here. I'm here to actually do something. I'm
Yeah,
here to get on the
exactly,
podium.
James. So there's
I'm really
absolutely
anxious to see
no
what
good
he can
way
do
to
with
hold
all of these
the
odd
log. There's no way to
objects.
hold it.
The
The
sled,
bag and
he did
from the
great on the
Capitol,
clip. Now, you know, moving that
you
log
have
is-
to hug it, but it's
he's
also
doing amazing
designed
right
to
now.
be hugged and
Jason
carried.
Khalipa using both hands to hold that log against his neck, and now Lacey
This is
Kovacs
like the test of like
shifting
getting
that
it done.
log
And I
to
think
his left
again,
shoulder,
carrying
and then
100
Albert
pounds is
Dominic
nothing
Larouche
for
going
these
to a
guys, but
similar grip
the
as
willpower it
Jason
takes to
Khalipa
hang on to that thing and not
was.
set it down
Behind
10
him is
times while you're
Simone
suffering
Paquette out of the
is
Canada
next
East
level.
region, and he's going with that two-handed grip as well. So a lot of different techniques here.
Yeah,
You know
great
what? I'm gonna have
point.
to go
Yeah,
with
we hadn't
Jensen's on
seen
this
really
one. I like
anything
that.
like
It'll
this
sit
yet.
behind his back
This
a little
style.
bit.
We've seen
Sure, it's
some
a little
crazy
awkward,
events over the
but
years.
it's
Don't get me
sitting-
wrong.
He looks
But
more
this
comfortable
was
to me there than the other
this
guys.
was
Look
I
at their heads
remember
are all cocked
when
onto the
they announced
side.
this. This was
I mean,
mind
it's
blowing
gonna
to
be
everybody
way
at the
more
time. Like this
awkward.
is going to be
Khalipa
insane.
looked like
We
he
didn't even
might
know
be
if people were going to
struggling
finish.
just
Like
a
it
bit
was.
there as he made the turn underneath
Yeah, Nona
the
Noble
stub
came
hub
up
center,
and
but he
yeah,
still has a pretty good grip
really
on that
put
thing.
people to the test.
He'll
And
take a
also
right
like
turn and then head into
so
the
this I
soccer
could go on this
stadium.
other
From our vantage
tangent
point,
for a
we see the
while,
fans
but you
start
got
to
to
come to
wonder
their
like
feet here,
this.
anticipating the arrival
It was
of the
worth
first
100
athlete,
points, and then
Jason
they have
Khalipa,
like
your
I think this is the
overall
same year
leader,
as like the zigzag sprint
threatening
and
to
some other
rack
like
up
simpler
yet another
CrossFit
first
couplets.
place
And I get that
finish.
you have to test like. Believe me, I fully
He's
understand. You have to test
absolutely
all different time
crushing right now. I'm
domains
so
and
impressed with
styles or whatever.
with his
But it's
endurance.
weird that it
What he
takes
did in
this
his
much
training
energy, focus, effort
is
to get
setting
100
him up
points
for
on an
perfection right
absolutely
now, and that's
devastating
exactly what he was
workout.
hoping for,
And then you
it
give
is
someone
working.
100 points for being a decent sprinter around a couple
Jason
of
Khalipa, the final stretch here before
a
he
couple
will
cones or
emerge
whatever it
into
was in the
soccer
zigzag
stadium.
sprint.
First
That's
come, first
to me
served
that
to the
is
sled that weighs
such a topic that should be
310
discussed
pounds.
more in the
Khalipa
games of
strapped
like
to the back,
value of
and he has
fitness
to
as
drag
opposed to
it
like, okay, this
66
event's 100,
yards
that
to
event's
the
100.
finish line.
It's just a different event, so
And
it's
here
automatically
comes
100. And maybe
Jason
that's a fine way to
Khalipa.
do it, is you're just calling
He
it a
was
sport.
moving great,
But
but
when
you
you
know
start
what? The
saying the
nice thing
test
about
of
this
fitness,
log
you
is
do
as
have to
awkward as it
wonder.
was, I think it really gave his legs
You do have
and
to
his
wonder
hips
about
a little
value
bit
of
of a
these
rest.
different
It
components
was
of the
awkward maybe to
fitness
slow
and
back,
how much
but
effort
now
you're
he
putting in,
gets
and,
to
and all
drive.
and
Time to put the
all
head
things
down
you're
and
testing in
just
one
drive
test
and
versus
bring
maybe
this thing
testing
home.
less
So
of the physical
Khalipa
traits in
still
other tests
has
and why they're
plenty
worth
of
the
lead
same.
here
So
as
it's
he
definitely
puts the
food for
straps
thought. I
across
like
his
to
shoulders.
nerd out on
And
that a
here
little bit.
comes Rich Froning, Austin Malialo, and Kenneth Leverett. So Froning is making up ground. He's
So
making
this
his
is
way
kind of
underneath the
impressive
step-up
because this,
center.
I mean,
Meanwhile,
Froning doesn't have a
Jason
great
Khalipa
finish,
as
but
Lacey
this
Kovacs
is one
goes
of those
through.
events that Froning should
He
not
is
have done that
currently
well
in
on at
second
all
place.
back then.
Khalipa is
But
ripping
Jason
into this
just,
sled and chewing up real estate on his way
I think
towards
you
the
could put
finish
another
line.
6 blue plates on that sled and you'd probably still do the
The
same
hardest
thing.
thing with this sled is it's all about staying. You got to keep
310
moving. When
pound
you
sled.
stop, you have to restart every single time. And 310 pounds on one, it was just raining, so the grass is wet. So
And you hear
foot,
Bill say
you
it
know,
was just
the-
raining.
the
So
fact
it's
that these guys don't
slippery,
have cleats or
and the
just in their
wetness
regular
you would
shoes,
think is like,
that's gonna
oh,
be
makes the
rough,
sled
but he
move
is
easier.
driving
It doesn't
this thing
necessarily
home
make the
right
sled
now.
move easier.
Lacey Kovacs has now made his way onto the field, and he'll try to catch Jason Khalipa, but Khalipa is a man
Austin's official
possessed
uniform.
in this event.
Also,
And he is
Maliolo
almost past the midway
has one of
point here.
the
Now
best
he is,
moments
but
in
he has
this
slowed down a
whole
noticeable
event
here.
here
And
shortly.
comes
And
Lacey
I
Kovacs,
was on
getting
the
ready to
right
get
from this
his
view on the
sled.
right in the stands watching it, and
He's
I was
not
close
going
to
over his
Austin's
shoulder.
lane
He's
when he he came in. Dude, he has a hilarious moment here in a second.
Himself in that sled. Meanwhile, Jason Khalipa with about 20 yards to go, 25 yards to go before he crosses the finish line. But Lacey Kovacs,
after getting that far, right there, almost 30 minutes in, just thinking about the leg burn that even these guys are feeling with the sled dragging it across the ground, and then everyone's done a sled, right? So like it's hurting a little bit while you're going, and then the second you stop moving the sled, you get that rush into your legs where it's just on fire, and you're not even sure you can bend them again without getting a cramp. Like they're doing that over and over and over again with 180, 190 beat per minute heart rate. They look basically drunk dragging the sleds, and they're still just moving it. Yeah, they've always done a good job of covering the games with their videos, always.
3 straight wins for Khalipa.
Like, how devastating is that workout for the rest of your week now? Putting that much effort into that for 100 points after he just rode half a marathon the night before.
Now Ben Smith is in second place. Smith out of nowhere as Jason Khalipa is catching his breath. But Ben Smith is now stopped.
Ben's in the white shirt.
We have a battle for second place. Ben Smith trying to hang on. Smith, arms churning.
He was just a young boy back then. He was a killer.
He came out of nowhere behind everyone.
Yeah, the stop has got to be like the biggest mind fuck, basically.
Ben Smith across the finish line.
Because you just don't want to start it up again. It's weird too. It's like they didn't brief the finish line here. They're just like, okay, if you get your feet back and you're touching the strap, or if you get your feet across the line, you're touching the strap, it counts. Because this, you would think they would have had to drag the whole sled across the line and have the judge tell them when to stop, but this is like the most random finish line ever in this event.
This is a guy who did very well in the pool event as well, so he's establishing himself as a contender now. Simone Paquette, he is across the finish line.
Ben Smith, second place.
With a second place finish. Smith was on the podium a couple years ago.
And Ben takes third overall this year at the games. Jason takes second overall, and you know who wins. That man. Because on Sundays, the CrossFit Games, Rich Froning gets served up a whole bunch of CrossFit, and he doesn't miss, does not lose.
As Jason Khalipa is going to increase his lead over the two-time defending champion. Now Froning is back into the sled, trying to make his way across the finish line. Rich Froning giving this all he has.
Garrett makes a comeback after falling behind a bit on that pig.
Rich Froning will have to wait, and
there's the slippery grass.
By a tenth of a second over the champ.
Right there, Rich is
my
fighting to get across.
goodness.
Battle just to get across the line.
See, the whole time he didn't even move the sled further. He could have just put the straps around his arms, then slid his feet across the line, and they would have counted it. Kind of a weird finish. Look at where all the different sleds are finishing up. It's a little weird, but that's kind of a typical old school CrossFit little detail that was overlooked. Shit happens. But look at the carnage.
You can see the difference. You know these guys are
dragging. You know some of these people who trained, you know, this is 2013, so don't get me wrong. These are like elite dudes there, especially at the time, top of the top at the time. But the training still wasn't fully what it is today in terms of
something they were used to.
In terms of getting used to volume or recovering fast from intensity. So this sort of event could literally fuck someone's entire weekend if they didn't pace it right, or they, you know, hit the gas too early or whatever. All kinds of good names coming from West Pyatt. All right, we got to find the Austin moment. I try not to pick on people too much because I've never been a CrossFit Games athlete, but there are some funny things. All right, he's coming up. So Austin gives it hell. Oh, Matt Chan. Matt Chan's going to be on the show here in a couple weeks. Matt Chan agreed to go through some old stuff with me, so I'm going to have Chan on the stream here in a couple weeks here in May. I'm pretty pumped about that. But Austin's coming up here in a second. He just struggles moving the sled so much, and you can see he's extremely frustrated. Austin's a super intense, fiery guy when he's competing. He looked like a zombie. But he did this for like 5 minutes out in the field.
Struggling to move that sled. Maliolo, 5'5", 175. So he's given up a
yeah, Wes is a good dude.
To that sled. Asia Barto now getting ready to come across the finish line. Barto now is in.
Asia Barto, that's a throwback. One of the you got dominated the South for years. All right, you get it. Brutal. Let's watch a little bit of the ladies. Mostly just to highlight one of the best ever. One of the ladies I feel like doesn't get her flowers as often enough. There's always so much talk about the greatest of all time in the ladies division, and when that comes up, you hear people talking like, you know, obviously Tia, Katrin, Annie comes up, but Sam Briggs, for what she was able to do in some of her higher end skills, was so far ahead of the field in so many ways. Yeah, I feel like she's definitely one of the greats, and you could easily make an argument for her as being on the Mount Rushmore of women's
at
CrossFit.
the Velodrome.
One of the
That was
top 4
divided
ever to
into
do it.
2 separate events.
The only
Samantha
reason
Briggs,
she's
the
not
woman who
more
currently
so in the
leads on
conversation is because she was never
2.1
able
mile
to
run,
develop
was the
her
winner of
weightlifting,
both rowing
unfortunately.
events.
That second rowing event was the very long rowing
But her
event.
her
That was,
high-end ability to
a very
move like 90%
aerobic
of her,
event. And although this is another long
well,
event,
because
I feel like there'll be
know
some correlation, but there's a lot
her
that
ability
can
though
change
to
because of the
move like
weights in the
90%
pig
of her
and the
max
Iditarod
over
at
and over
the
and
end
over
of this
again
event.
was also
So
crazy
while it may
impressive.
look like to the viewer
Her
that,
gymnastics,
there's another
crazy
long
impressive.
event,
At
probably
least
it's gonna
her
be the
pulling
same top
gymnastics,
3
her
women.
handstand
I don't
push-ups, not so
necessarily
much.
feel
But
that could be the case.
and then
Sam
her
Briggs
her
at the bottom of your screen. The
aerobic
leader behind her
abilities
is
were
Christy Phillips in the pink.
not really
And then
even in the
Christy
same
Phillips's
world
left
as everybody
is
else.
number 65. That's Khalipa Ladera. Sam Briggs, number 30 in that red jersey. Briggs missed last year's CrossFit Games. We had that huge Pendleton endurance event where there was that run over the microwave mountain, treacherous terrain. Briggs didn't get
You
to
get
do
the
that. She
idea.
was one of
Briggs
the
is
only
going to
people
take
I have ever
what
spoken to
seems
that
like
I
a
wish I could've done that
3-mile
event.
lead and a
She has
2-mile
great
run here.
background.
So let's
She's
get to the field.
Triathlon background, duathlon background. She loves to run. So you can just see she's at a very relaxed look on her
She
face.
just
Doesn't look like this is a
absolutely
struggle
destroys
for her at all.
everybody on the run. But
Another athlete
as you saw
behind her,
from Garrett
number
Fisher
65,
before,
Khalipa Ladera,
that
another
may
athlete that loves
not
running
matter.
marathons,
Jesus,
lower
runs long.
skilled, higher kind of.
All right.
First pig flip.
So she's
All
the
right,
first one
so
in,
let's talk about the
obviously on the
pig.
pig.
We have a pig flip.
There's
for
a couple
100
close, but
yards. The
her
pig
and some
weighs
others
310
create a
pounds,
huge separation on
and
the
it
rest of the
looked
field.
most like a tire flip that
So it's the
athletes
same
are
pig as the
used to
guys,
flipping
there's
a
just no
tire,
plates on it.
but more similarly,
And again, the
replicates
girls for the first
deadlift.
time
That's a very
are
standard,
learning how to
basic
flip the
movement
pig the
in
same
CrossFit.
way.
It's a standard exercise. And the deadlift uses posterior chain, your hamstrings and your glutes most of the time.
So
and your
she's
low
3
back.
flips in, and there's
gonna
not
be
even
definitely
anybody
an
in sight.
advantage if you can keep your hips low while you stand up with that pig. If you raise your hips too high, you're going to be putting all the pressure on your back.
And that's a look at how big of a lead that Sam Briggs actually has.
That's
over
a
that one.
great
Michelle
question.
Kinney, number 49. She's now
Similar,
coming in, as
similar
is
athletes.
Khalipa Ladera.
I
Ladera
actually
has been
think
up front since they
Haley,
started.
even though
Michelle
she's
Kinney
not also
made up some
super strong,
ground
she's
and is
stronger
now in second
comparatively
place.
to the
Khalipa
field.
Ladera is sitting in
And
third,
she's
and it's Sam Briggs, though,
she's
who
more
still has the
well-rounded.
lead as she continues to go.
She's more well-rounded and doesn't
with that
have.
pig.
She
Now,
does have home run hitting
that
ability,
pig also is
but not
taller
quite the same
than your
home run
standard
hitting
tire,
ability
and
that
that
Sam
presents a little
had
bit of a
versus her
challenge.
field at the time.
The pig
Like, for
stands at
example,
5'6"
if there was a muscle-up
and
workout,
Sam is 5'7".
there was almost nobody
So
even
it's
else
about
worth
her
talking
height,
about
and
because
that-
Sam
that
Briggs was going to
definitely has a
basically do
different,
2-to-1 muscle-ups
a
on every
different
other
awkward
female,
feel to it.
or
You can see
even
how
the
she
run
throws her
or
knee
whatever.
up
She was
into
going to
it
be
to get it started,
just
but you can only do
so
that for
far ahead.
so
And
long
while
before
Haley
you need
excels
to
in that
be able
area,
to
I don't think
push that
she
weight
necessarily
forward.
dominated
She's already
the
looking a
field
little
or
gassed,
dominates. I guess she's coming back this year. We'll see
trying
how
to
she's
straighten
doing.
the pig back out in her lane. At this point, you need to just
Absolutely.
keep
If
moving.
Sam
You can see her
Briggs
hips rose just a little
was
too high,
kind of
and
more
she's putting all that
physically
strain on her
gifted
low
with
back, not
lifting
keeping her
weights
low
and
back
built
locked
better
in
to
and
be a
tight.
weightlifter, obviously
She's
if she
rounding.
was
You can see that your
stronger
low
and
back,
built
that is
differently
definitely
for
gonna affect
lifting
her
weights, she
on
would
the-
probably be
on the
sacrificing
Iditarod
some
and
of her
the
other
sled pull at the
high-end
end.
skills.
Let's
But yeah,
remember
for
that
whatever
Sam
reason, she
Briggs,
had
prior to
the
this year,
total
did have the
package. She would have won
reputation
for
of
years
being
and
the
years.
athlete who, was strong, but the form was lacking.
Yeah, with Haley
She
and
does
Sam
lack some
comparison.
technical
That's
skill,
correct.
and again,
But I think
you
Haley
usually see
is-
the athletes that are really,
I
they're
think Haley is
workhorses, and they can
probably
dig
the-
in and they have that mental push, but they
I
lack
think
that-
her traits are
they
better
lack
for the
that skill
sport,
and that
especially
technique,
now.
and
She's
it's
more
usually that's
well-rounded.
what they're gonna
Even though
break
hitting
down,
home
and
runs
that's
like
where
Sam
they
did
do.
back then
Sam
wasn't
Briggs
huge
still
for the
in first
leaderboard
place.
because you
Next
could
to
take
her
a couple wins and then
is Anna
you could
Tunnicliffe.
basically take
She
an event
currently
off on
sits
something you couldn't
in
do.
second.
Like she's gonna
It was
come in
definitely smart
last
that
in the
she
max
kept that
deadlift or whatever,
pig
but
straight because she
so
wanted to
the
keep
wins
it
helped
straight, so
her
it stayed in line, so it didn't waste
stay
energy to move it back
near
in
the
her
top, always podium
So
contention.
Anna Tunnicliffe,
But I still think you have to
second
be
in the
more well-rounded now.
Southeast region. She's a two-time Olympian in sailing and actually won a gold medal for Team USA.
Yeah, and
in
I don't even
2008.
think it was actually
Tunnicliffe
that.
is
I don't.
5'6",
Yeah, you're
so
right.
she's the same
Camille was
height
decent
as
at muscle ups, but I
as
don't
the
think she
pig,
was even on Sam's level.
and she weighs in a little bit more than Sam Briggs.
Camille just had a better,
She's a
well-rounded
trying to chase
gymnastics
down Samantha
package
Briggs.
than
Briggs
Sam
still in
did.
first
Sam was a
place.
gymnastics puller, not a presser at all, and Camille could do it
Tunnicliffe,
all. That's the
her
difference, I
profession
think.
is sailing. She has to be strong to maneuver the sails, so she is used to
But
that
like this
strength
pig
element
is
in her everyday profession.
I can't remember the weight, probably 250, 300 pounds, something like that for the women. And she, this is probably her, similar to her 80, 90% deadlift, just picking the pig up off the ground and then adding the flip element or the clean element, however you want to put it on that. She's doing over and over and over again. And that shows you kind of what she was able to do. But the high end, if there's one max weight pig flip contest, she'd be last. She's coming last.
Anytime you touch a weight, It's going to slow you down. You're going to see Sam is breathing hard, but I'm going to tell you,
Yeah.
Sean,
No, that's a good way to put it. Yep, she was the only one in the ballpark, and
solely anaerobic. They
she was in the
for
outfield.
A short amount of time. They're going to be breathing 10 times harder than she is here.
Third place right now is
can anyone else hear me?
number 65.
Hopefully, I'm still operating here. I never know with this Hawaii Wi-Fi when something's going to cut out. Okay, cool.
At the CrossFit Games, she was hoping for events like this.
Augustus, get your shit together so you can watch.
Skill work. Another athlete similar to Sam Briggs's background.
All right, we're going to fast forward a little bit.
Really excited about this event.
Yeah,
cruising through the show today.
Is now trying to make up some ground. She is in third place
currently.
So it's Sam Briggs on the right side. The soccer stadium.
Getting close to that log. If I'm not mistaken, too, I think I said this before. I think the log was the same. I think CrossFit was just like, all right, screw it. Everyone can carry the 100-pound log. Maybe it was smaller. Maybe it's like an 80 or 70-pound log. I actually don't remember.
Heart's going to start pumping again with some adrenaline.
Sam Briggs done with
oh, it is a 70-pound log. I take that back. It's a 70-pound log. Thank God.
And then run it back here.
It wouldn't surprise me for CrossFit to just be like, all right, everyone has to deal with the same implements in a workout like this.
They put a path aside for him, and now Briggs having trouble with it. And she's got to figure this thing out very quickly because she has Anna Tunnicliffe, Kalina Ladares, and Valerie Bobo.
See, watching stuff like this is such a nice break from the stress of following along with the quarterfinal leaderboards and the penalties and all the drama. And this person feels that way and that person feels this way. This is so much better just watching the old school athletes throw down, kick ass, and remind us why the hell we love this freaking sport so much. This is, I already know the outcome, and this is way more entertaining than following along on the leaderboards right now.
Both shoulders, but right now it looks like it's resting on her left shoulder primarily.
Yeah, she looks like she's just having trouble stabilizing that.
There's Kalina Ladares, and now Valerie Bobo.
I can't remember if Kalina was northeast or southeast, but she was like, she was another engine style athlete.
I think the athletes are anticipating it to feel better than it is.
On the left,
but she's going to really push Sam here.
Athlete right now, Sam
but the rest of the field is pretty much missing. Like they're not even in the game.
As we have hit the 22-minute mark here in event
hey, thanks, Kenneth. You know, it's funny. I do this. I literally do this for myself. I do this to have people come hang out with me and chat like you guys are doing in the chat, and I get to watch old stuff. And I've been kind of into the game stuff lately just because the season's kicked off and there's a lot of hype around the games. But I'm going to go back into some other like WOD demos and older school CrossFit stuff here once some of the game stuff starts dying down. But yeah, I have a lot of fun with this. This is my therapy with you guys.
After this log carry, the women will come into the soccer stadium.
Yeah, I said my piece a couple times, and I just want the leaderboard stuff to be done, and I just want to start looking forward to semifinals. So I'm trying to close my eyes and block my ears to all of it until they can wake me up when it's over.
Ladares now having some problems with that log, but she's still able to keep it aloft.
You know what? At that point, I would say it's okay to stop for 2 seconds.
You think so?
Make sure that's on your shoulder better. She's going to waste too much
You know what? You know what's funny? That's kind of what I would do. I have no shame in saying that when I do a workout, whether it's a class version or even a version of the Jump Ship 90, I'd use the women's weights because I get a way more intense workout out of it. And I even tested the quarterfinals workouts with the women's standards because I'm not a strong guy. I have a decent engine. I can breathe. I have some skills, but like, yeah, Dave might just do the women's stuff and be like, I can do that. So women can do this, and then the men have this. That's kind of how my brain works too.
She doesn't want to slow down for even that second.
Yeah, dude. The King Kong watch party was fun.
On the outset, but then was able to steady it. That looks like
all right. Okay. Since we're here, I don't know what they're gonna do about the Masters. I don't know how they're gonna watch all those videos. I don't know how they're gonna do that. That's why I kind of want to close my eyes and pretend I don't know what's going on. So they just update the scores and we can get to semifinals training, which is like in 2 weeks. All right, back to the show. So Kalina has now passed Sam, but it will all come down to who can move the sled. And you can see the ground's like wet, so it's.
This is why I always say second place is the
Sam basically had to walk with the log, and Kalina's moving her feet more in a little shuffle.
If you can surprise the person ahead of you, they don't see you coming.
So
it's Ladares. It's not Medeiros. And I think it's with a K. I think it's Kalina with a K. Ladaris. I think it's like Ladaris or Ladarius, something like that. It's a longer last name. Again, she was. I think she only made the games once or twice as an individual. I think she also did team a little bit. I might be wrong, but I'm just trying to remember back 11 years ago. But she was either from the east, the northeast, or the southeast. I remember she was on the East Coast with us, if I'm not mistaken. There's her name, Kalina Ladarius.
Which is your low back and your core and your abs to stabilize the lock.
So now both Ladaris and Sam Briggs.
Yeah, dude, there's nothing wrong with that, Greg. That's all good. What we can do with the women's weights is still, honestly, in my opinion, elite fitness. Like sometimes programming even on my stuff gets a little out of hand with the expectations of what athletes can do these days. But like, we could just be regular dudes who do tough workouts, and the women's weight might be the right weight for us. I'm like totally fine with that.
Event number 4. There's Anna Tunnicliffe currently sitting in 3rd place in this event.
Yeah, probably true. Probably true as far as the judging goes. There'll be some interesting changes next year, but it's a nice wake-up call for everybody, I think. I think it was necessary if we want to carry forward with this style of the sport, this qualifying style. I have not done push-pull yet, but that's a legendary one. Maybe I can get Josh Bridges on the show to do push-pull with me. I bet he would do it. So, guys, I do have some bigger names booked for May and beyond. I just didn't want to overwhelm people during the quarterfinals and all this madness with the stress. So I've just been doing some solo shows and getting some friends to jump on with me. But yeah, we have some big names coming throughout the summer, which I'm super stoked about. People who can give us a real perspective on what they were feeling and thinking back during these style events.
Even if you go at a slow pace, keep the sled moving.
100 points are on the line here. Kalina Ladaris currently sits in 7th place overall. And
hi, Don. We're just wrapping up here, but glad you dropped by.
The burn and run. Sam Briggs
she's I wouldn't say she's a bigger athlete in general, but definitely bigger than Sam. And she like just muscled through that. She was another one of those like sheer willpower athletes. She didn't have Kalina didn't have all the skills. She just had like an absolute motor.
Of the 100s, Val Goebel with her lunges was able to fight through and get to the end out of nowhere. Nice and strong the whole way through.
Oh man, we have to talk about this again. I don't know. I'll probably have to do another. But we'll probably, once this all wraps up, I think all the leaderboards, including Masters, I think once we all have time to digest what's been going on, I think we'll be able to debrief it all a lot better. And without pointing the finger and blaming, just understanding how to improve the situation.
Very smart. She's shortening the length of the straps.
Yeah, James, it is. Thanks for bringing me back to the show, James. Yes, the sled is absolutely ridiculously hard. And the thing to remember about the sleds, guys versus girls, is a sled pull like this is about leverage, right? And women are typically shorter than men, so women have less leverage. And even though the weight on the sled's lighter, it's still harder, I would argue, step for step with a sled. So it's even more impressive, I think, what the women are doing than the men when they finish. The men can gather more momentum, they have more leverage, they move the sled easier.
Coming across the finish line, and she will lock up her first place finish of this competition. She's 7th place overall coming in, and she will help her cause.
There's the finish line fiasco again. Just get your feet across.
And she needs to cross the finish line.
Done. So she comes back and beats Sam after Sam puts a good 45 seconds between her on the run. Sam still beats her off the pig flip by close to the same amount of time, and then Sam kind of, I won't say implodes, but slows down quite a bit. And that's not Valerie Vobril.
Actually, I take that back. That's Ruth Anderson-Horrell.
There you go. And then Sam just slows down so much with the heavy log. So I love this workout. There's just so many elements that even if you're in the lead, one of the 4 elements here can be such a burden, no pun, actually I guess pun intended, on you, that it can take you right out of it. So you have to be so well-rounded when it comes to moving heavy loads across long distances. And it's such a great, like, classic CrossFit test. I just love it.
She was in 1st place overall coming into this event. She has 285 points.
Does that have a nickname? Shawnee? He's always done a good job on the mic. I didn't know Shawnee was his nickname.
Very upsetting for Sam Briggs. She set herself
Yeah,
up for
so
everything
that's a
that she
great
could
point,
possibly
James.
do
I
to
think a
get
lot
here.
of the sport,
And it looks
especially at
like
the games
Christy
level, and I
Phillips,
think a
who's
little bit at
closing
the
in on her,
semifinals level too, and I
fell
know
back a
they
little
do
bit
this
in the run,
already,
but was
but
able to catch back up here.
considering what
Now Sam
it
Briggs
looks
getting
like to
set
the
to come across
fans,
the finish line,
more
being
so than what
encouraged
the
by
test
Khalipa
actually
there.
is,
Briggs is across and done.
I
So
think is
a
more
third
important,
place
right? This
finish
is an
for
exhibition.
Sam
It's a
Briggs, and that will
spectacle.
keep her
Sure,
in
it's a
first
bit of a
place
test of fitness,
overall.
and it's a
She
bit of a
was the
sport,
leader
but
for
neither one
most
of
of
those is
this
strongly
event,
defined.
but once they got to the
But building
hog,
this hype and
Buffalo
making
Darris
this
and the
memory
crowd
stick in my
continued to
head for
revenge the
11
Bulls
years,
were able to
that is
pass
what they
her.
need to do to grow the sport. They need to create moments,
And now
and the way they
Christy
build
Phillips
these
shaking
events
out
and
the
the way
legs.
the
Christy
events
Phillips,
finish and the way they play out, create the
4 yards to
moments,
go.
right? So
She
when you
can
come up, when you
finish
talk about
in
programming, you can't just be concerned with the programming in terms of,
That's the 30-minute
is it
mark here.
fair? Is it balanced enough? Is it this? Is it that? Like, yes, that has to be part of the way you think about it, but laying out the logistics of the event itself so that the fans can lose their fucking minds over a finish and talk about this for 11 years later, that is the key to solidifying this for a long period of time. Because there's a lot of events that you guys could throw up in the chat. And oh, did you look at this event? Did you do that event? I may not even remember the event because it may have been displayed in a way that was non-memorable. You know, I've been watching the CrossFit Games literally since the first one. I think we're on year 17 or whatever. There's 200 events they've done. I can't recall all of them off the top of my head, but the ones that stick out that are memorable are the ones that have these unreal moments in there that bring me back to watch them again and again. So I think that's really a big part of this.
And they do that on concrete, or they do it in parking lots, macadam surfaces.
Oh, it's a dig. I gotcha. I mean, you guys can say whatever you want in the chat.
So Becca Voigt crossing the finish line. 31 minutes, 19.
How many from today's top 40 could go back and win the 2013 games? That's a great question. That's the sort of shit I like to think about. Let's see.
You can see the girls tearing off their shoes.
You know, I think the better question is how many of the people from 2013 could be competitive in today's field, right? I think that's probably a better way to look at it, and it's probably a short list. It's probably, let's see, I can let's play this game. Let's play this game. Let's play it for a second here. I think I have that right. Oh, that's the women's. Hang on, let me pull up the men's. All right, so here's the men's finish from 2013. The question is more so, who out of that list would be competitive still today with where they were at back then? So Rich, I think, is still very competitive back then versus the field today. How many of those people today would beat Rich? I don't know. Rich still has it all put together. And I think when these people were at the top of their game, like, don't get me wrong, every year the field's improving. Every year the field gets deeper, the skills get more aggressive, the weights get heavier, and the aerobic systems are better, right? But it's moving up very incrementally. It's not this like exponential growth anymore. At a certain point, we started to find the ceiling at the time, and the ceiling moves up slowly and slowly and slowly each year. It's really, really slow. So fitter today, but definitely not stuff. Yeah, and that's a part of it too, right? So maybe the fitness has moved up over the past 10 years, but maybe the toughness hasn't. Maybe the strategy of today is a little better too. The coaches are really good today. They know how to execute, and the athletes know how to execute as well. So I would say there's a short list of people that would still be competitive if we're talking about where they were at in 2013 versus where the field's at now. If we could like merge the times and have them go at it, I think probably the top half of the field would definitely win the games back in 2013. And probably even further down would have a real shot. They'd be in the top. Everyone would be in the top podium race, I would say. Rich would be competitive. Scott Panchik, Ben Smith, and back then would smoke with it. Yeah, a lot of people, not everybody, but a lot of people for sure. And I think a lot of that's without a doubt, I would say that's true. So you can't really count some of those can't count some of those qualifiers. But what was I going to say? Yeah, I think some of the people from back then still had enough to stay competitive. I mean, look at Ben. Ben, if you put Ben in the games, he probably doesn't finish last, right? He doesn't have the engine he once did, but he's so well-rounded. If a skill came up, he could still do it. He still lifts with a lot of the big guys. You see his clips. He's like, oh, I'm feeling old today. And I just like, hit a 275-pound touch and go snatch triple. It's like, okay, there's actually not that many, less than half the field of the games is probably actually going to do that. So yeah, Ben qualified for semis this year. So yeah, look at the top 5. Anonymous, I think, is Garrett Fisher. But yeah, at least the top 10. Even Neil was a complete animal back then. Obviously, the game has changed. And more so the execution of how you finish the workouts has changed today. People are just, the top athletes are so skilled as to how they're going to finish the workouts that strategy, I think, would be like, the demise of Khalipa today. Like Jason would out tough everybody. So if you had something that was literally just, there was no strategy to it, just grunt work, kind of like the burden run, Khalipa would still be highly competitive in where he was 2013 versus the actual field today. But I think a lot of skills and the execution is much better today. It's much more of a strategic sport today. Oh, damn. Is that why they pulled his name off and made him anonymous? I didn't know that. I don't follow him. He's out of my scope at this point. Great point. Hendren was a monster. I get asked, well, I have been asked probably 3 times. I say I've been asked a lot. I've probably been asked 3 times in my entire life. But I've been asked before if I could go back and had the opportunity to coach any athlete in past CrossFit, who would it be? And my number 1 has always been Khalipa. I always just obsessed with the way he performed and then blown away by some of the mistakes he made because he just wasn't necessarily fully guided at the time as to how to execute. So Khalipa would be my number 1 without question. My number 2 would have been Marcus Hendren, a dude with insane potential that was never truly unlocked. And he just happened to be in the region with Morad and Froning and Panchek and everybody else. So he kind of got lost in that 3-person qualifier Central East regional shuffle, unfortunately. But absolute monster, absolute super high potential. And I think he trained by himself. I don't think he ever had a coach. He was like a farm guy. So really missed out on what he could have been in the sport. And he was young too. Yeah, it does feel like Ben's 45, but he's really 30. I know I'm 8 years older than Ben. But Ben was like 18 when he started competing at the games, or maybe even 17. Oh, Ryan Fisher. Yeah. No, I was going to say, I didn't know Garrett Fisher did that. Yeah, Ryan Fisher is the social media dude that sort of hates on CrossFit until it's convenient for him to like on CrossFit for more likes and views and clicks and stuff. Yeah, Ryan's a clickbait guy. Okay. Yeah, more full-time today. Yeah, that's another big difference in the and there's a whole other topic I could go to between what the games athletes of the past contributed to the CrossFit ecosystem versus what the games athletes of today contribute. I don't want to go down that road today. I think we've gone great question, but I think we'll save that for another time. That is food for thought, whether they made a mistake the way they split up North America for this year. I don't know. It is weird to see who's in the West and who's in the East, and where I know some people are located. Like, I think Bill Leahy and Brendan Luckett, who are like in Louisiana, are in the West. How's that West? That's weird to me. Anyway, that's a flex right there. Okay, guys, I'm going to leave you. Thank you for tuning in. I'm having a lot of fun doing these solo shows too, and you guys are a huge, huge help for keeping the show rolling for me. Otherwise, I would just sit here in silence and watch these videos all day by myself. But thanks for tuning in. We will catch you guys again on, what's today, Friday? Tuesday. Be back on Tuesday. All right. See you later.